Hola, ¿qué tal amigos latinos, amigos hispanos? Bienvenidos a Talking About Kennett Square. En español, hablando de Kennett Square. Hoy tenemos a Kyle Coleman y Doug Douglas que estarán respondiendo preguntas muy importantes para nosotros los hispanos. Así que, ¡vamos!
Hi, I'm Doug Douglas. I'm the president of Kennett Square Borough Council. This is my 7th year serving on Borough Council, and I've actually lived in the borough since 2008. And I'm learning more and more each day. And I'm really thrilled to be here today. Give me an opportunity to hear more about what's going on in the different parts of the community that I don't always get exposure to. I live and work in Kennett. I work across the street at Genesis Healthcare, so my whole day is in Kennett Square for the most part.
And I'm Kyle Coleman. I'm the Borough Manager. Came here from Southwest Florida in mid-September, and I'm just excited to be here. I'm working with this council and this great community. And to Doug's point, I have even more of that learning to do. So just excited to get here, go through some of these questions, and see where it goes.
Vamos con la primera pregunta. ¿Qué tan comprometido está el Borough con los habitantes de Kennett Square? ¿Sabe el Borough de los problemas que tiene la comunidad y cómo resolverlos?
Yeah, so I think that's really what drove the idea to come here today, and we're doing a broader effort to outreach to the community because for the knowledge that we have and that we know the issues out there, I think there are a lot of them that we probably don't know. So the first step is coming here and hearing what those issues are so that we can get to work on trying to address them.
And I think that from the Borough Council standpoint, we are absolutely committed at making sure that all of our residents have access to programs, services that can help everyone be as successful as possible. And I think that it's easy to assume that if you're not hearing from folks, if they're not showing up at meetings, if they're not participating, that things are going just fine. So it really where the commitment is to do more outreach like this, to get back, to get out in the community more. And that way we can get that information and work together to solve any problems and make things more accessible.
Pregunta número 2. ¿El Borough tiene un estimado de la cantidad de habitantes hispanos que tiene Kennett Square?
I know that a large portion of our community is Hispanic, and I think the last census data was almost right at 40%. So well aware that we're close to 50% Hispanic population in the borough. So recognizing that, again, drives so much of what we need to be doing more so that the programs and services we're providing are reaching the entire constituent base.
Yeah, and that's accurate. And it just highlights the need for us to be out in the community, hearing the whole community, and advocating for that significant part of our town.
Well, and it's not just the residents too, but you think there's a lot of Hispanic workers that are coming into the borough as well to work and are right on the outskirts. So a lot of the things that we want to participate in isn't just specific to the borough residents too, if it can really benefit the larger population.
Pregunta 3. ¿Qué programas nuevos existen o han desarrollado en el Borough para ayudar a los hispanos?
I'll jump in here. So programs, I think one of the things that we need to distinguish is where the programs are happening and then what the borough's doing to let the community members know about those programs and making them accessible. Because borough-specific programs really do need to have the entire population in mind. That said, if we're not hearing from the Hispanic community, if the Hispanic community isn't getting the access like they should be, then what can we do differently? And some of the things that we've done in the last couple years, we established an advisory commission of Latino affairs, which is a committee of Borough Council. And that group alone is really instrumental in bringing perspectives and challenges that the Hispanic community is facing to Borough Council. The other thing we established was a human relations commission, and that provided a local process for individuals who might be experiencing discrimination in workforce, in employment, and access to services, and it can be handled more quickly and quickly and efficiently at a local level instead of waiting for a state process to occur.
And I think we're really lucky in Kennett Square to have some of the nonprofits that we do. I mean, we've got some really strong nonprofits that work towards specific goals, and quite a few of them are related to Latino affairs and concerns. And so I see our role as a borough government being an advocate for those organizations, helping them where we can, acting as something of a hub, and that's true of all of our nonprofits.
And I think right now is a great time to put a plug in that we have a number of borough boards and commissions that residents participate in. So anytime any of our residents want to get more involved in local government and have a voice in what happens, they should feel free to reach out to the borough and see where they might contribute their skills.
Vamos con la pregunta 4. ¿De qué forma se puede solucionar el problema del transporte en Kennett Square? Una situación que ha afectado principalmente a los hispanos.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's one of those, that we talked about earlier that affects our entire community. It's a national problem in a lot of ways. Something I think is interesting that's being worked on now is we commissioned a study maybe 6 months ago using grant funds looking at, it's called micro transit. And basically the idea is it's something of a public Uber or Lyft system, but the idea is how do you help people get to their end, spots, and how do you do it in a way that's sustainable for us as a limited borough government. So it's certainly understood that that's a challenge out there.
And I know that the Southern Chester County Opportunity Network did an in-house study, I think it was 3 years ago, where they looked at the scoot bus system and looked at some of the challenges that riders were facing with that system, and whether it be stops weren't properly labeled or the signs weren't present, if the drivers weren't speaking Spanish, those are things that they found out and said, hey, this is just those little things that even if we have the system, it's making it more complicated when somebody doesn't understand me or the sign's not available and I'm standing at the wrong corner or things like that. So again, going back to the borough might not have the specific fix, but making sure the borough's working with those organizations to do whatever they can.
Pregunta 5. El tema de falta de vivienda para comprar o para rentar es uno de los más importantes. ¿El Buró tiene conocimiento sobre ello y tiene algún plan?
We are very aware of the rising cost of housing, and that's a challenge across the board. And I think we discuss that. We're worried about it every single day. And there's no easy fix. There really isn't. But it's important that as we look at any opportunities that we have for public-private partnerships, for changes to maybe the development process, where we might make things easier for the developer, that they could work in housing at different price points to their projects. But it really takes a lot of creativity. And again, this is where the council itself cannot fix this problem. And we have to really work with as many people as we can to discuss options.
Yeah, I think all of that is true. I mean, part of what makes Kennett Square unique from other areas is that we have different people here and we have some different price points. And as you look further out into the future, if you imagine losing that, I think you'd lose a lot of the character of this town. So that's something that came through very clearly for me as an interest when I was looking at this position. And it stood out. I was looking nationally. That stood out in Kennett Square, an interest in keeping that character here. So I know it's a priority. And I think to your point, it's one of those. It's one of those challenges, probably like transportation, that's going to require regional investment to make it happen here.
And I think you start to see that all these specific issues, transportation, childcare, housing, the workforce, they're all tied together. So really, you can't fix one without also getting small wins or making small efforts in the other ones as well.
Pregunta 6. La comunidad latina se queja de los altos precios en las rentas. ¿Existe alguna forma de hacer algo al respecto?
Well, I think this tracks the last question in a lot of ways. We're seeing it. It's something that we talk about every single day, but how do we keep the price points where they are? How do we introduce more affordable housing? It's like our last one, I think it's going to require a regional approach to it and probably a regional investment to be able to do it, but it's absolutely a priority.
And going back to the last question too, with the small wins, I think we don't try to solve that. If we're going to redevelop the NVF property on the south part of town, that's not where we fix the housing or rental prices. We need to look at smaller developments. We need to look at smaller opportunities and see if that works and then apply it on a larger scale.
Pregunta 7. ¿Cómo está la tasa de vacunación contra el COVID-19 en Kennett Square? ¿Qué información relacionada con la pandemia manejan ustedes?
So we're really lucky being in Chester County because the Chester County rates right now, we're close to almost 79% of the population 5 and above that are vaccinated. Now we know that there's been a huge spike in cases over the last couple months, but the 7-day trend is trending down. Both case numbers, positive test results, deaths have all decreased in the last week. So that's a positive sign, but we still have to remain vigilant with the vaccinations. That was something that our mayor did. He partnered with our state representative, Craig Williams, and they set up 3 COVID vaccination clinics in Kennett over the last 2 months. And that was really a great way to reach some of the population that wouldn't necessarily be able to make it to the hospitals or to the Chester County Public Health Building or anything like that. It was a local effort that worked really well.
Yeah, I think it's clear that our borough takes it really seriously, and we're both vaccinated, boosted. That's why we're in close proximity here. But when we're in meetings, I think all of us are wearing masks, and we're doing our best with it. We're trying to still make progress for the borough. But 2 years in, it's amazing that it's still such a challenge. And if nothing else, it's nice to hear that the area takes this really seriously, and we are committed to trying to just push through. Hopefully there's a light at the end of the tunnel here.
Yep.
Pregunta 8. ¿Creen ustedes que con tanta presencia de hispanos los servicios públicos pudieran colapsar en Kennett Square?
I couldn't think of any examples of us using more public resources because of the demographics of our town. I mean, what we talked about earlier, that's what makes Kennett Square special. Our history here, our makeup. And so, everyone I've met says you lean into that and you try to support the people that are here. But as far as the question, it's no.
Yeah, I think almost the opposite is that any time we see that there's populations that aren't being served with all the organizations we have in our community, that those services would become more accessible and there'd be more opportunities, more programming. And I think one of the things, the new library, I think is a great example of services being able to be offered at a higher level than what they even are now. So yeah, I just think that it'll continue to increase participation and nothing will collapse, relating to the demographics of any population. So of course we see the mushrooms on the table here, and we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Kennett being the mushroom capital of the world and how that industry is such a driver of our economy. And just want to let everybody know that the planning is already in place for the upcoming, the 2022 Mushroom Festival. We're not quite sure if it's going to come back to Uptown or if it's going to be at another location, but we know that the last 2 years just hasn't been what it's been in the past, and we want to embrace that weekend and that industry and definitely bring that back full force. The other thing, we just celebrated New Year's Eve, and we had the mushroom drop in town. That was wonderful again after a year off, bringing it back up to Uptown, and it was great participation, and it was great to see town alive again this year after so much struggle over the last 18 months or so. So for the folks that live in town, let's keep these good things happening. For those that come and visit, keep coming into Kennett to visit.
Yeah, it's funny. We joked offline that we actually rang in 2022 together because we were at the mushroom drop. We were watching it, and I look across the street, and there's Doug. And that,
we didn't kiss at midnight.
So, but I think that highlights what another special thing about the town is that I've been here since mid-September. There was a half marathon, there was a brew fest, there was the Christmas parade, there's a New Year's Eve event, and there was the Clover Market.
The Clover Market, yep.
So there were 5 largely attended events, plus what was going on Birch Street around the holidays. So that to me is what makes this place special. So I'm excited, if for no other reason, hopefully as COVID starts to go away a bit, that we can really lean into these events again, because it's such a great place to live, and to see the whole town come out for these events, that is special. And kudos to our police and our public works people too for making that happen.
And that goes back, actually, not to get back into the formal questions, but we didn't talk about the police. And like a lot of times with the police, the public works folks, they're our eyes on the ground, and they have to bring back the challenges they're seeing to help us make our decisions in our roles as well. So again, kudos to all the borough staff, the police, the firefighters and EMS for really taking care of the community and giving us a lot of the information we need to do our jobs more effectively.
And the nonprofits that organize those events too. Yep.
Thanks again for talking with Kennett Square, for having us. We really enjoyed our time today, and we hope we've answered some questions, shed some light on some issues. And if you have any questions, if you have any concerns that you want to share with us, make sure that after viewing this podcast, you're commenting, asking some questions on social media, or you could contact the borough directly as well.
Yeah, you can always stop by our office, 120 Marshall Street. You can call us, 610-444-6020. And maybe you can add that to the screen, but 610-444-6020. Stop into the office, email us, send us a letter, however you want to get in touch with us, and we'd be happy to talk with you.
And we do have bilingual staff.
Yes.
Correct? Yep. So thanks again, and we really enjoyed our time today.
Thank you.
Amigos hispanos, amigos latinos, estén pendientes de Talking About Kennett Square, hablando de Kennett Square, con Kyle Coleman desde el Borough de Kennett Square. Gracias.